The Bernabeu is a graveyard for spreadsheets. It is the place where tactical diagrams burn and pure aura takes the throne. 3-2-0. That is not just a score. That is a brutal execution of modern football. Federico Valverde did not just score a hat-trick in 23 minutes. He dismantled an ideology. He proved that when the white shirt gets heavy, the robotic system short-circuits. The Spanish giant did not just beat Manchester City. They swallowed their soul. They reminded the world that the Champions League is not won on a tactical whiteboard. It is won with passion, history, and an unbreakable mentality. And right in the middle of that tactical massacre stood Erling Haaland. Or rather, the ghost of Erling Haaland. The cyborg was unplugged. The system failed. And the modern statistics generation is in absolute panic right now. They are desperately pulling up expected goals, heat maps, and pass completion rates to defend a striker who simply disappeared when the lights were the brightest. The excuses are already flooding social media. They blame the midfield. They blame the manager. They blame everything except the man who is supposed to be the most lethal weapon in Europe. But we do not play football on laptops. We do not calculate passion on a calculator. When the system dies, when the midfield is suffocated, who are you? Erling Haaland showed us exactly who he is without Pep Guardiola holding his hand. He is a system player, a passenger on a sinking ship, a tap-in merchant who looks completely lost the second the script is thrown out the window. Now imagine Wayne Rooney stepping onto that exact same pitch. Imagine the prime Manchester United street footballer feeling that pressure. He would not have dropped his head. He would have set the stadium on fire. Today, we put the ghost of Madrid against the ultimate English bulldog on the football legend meter. We are using our 10 ruthless categories to show exactly why the modern game is severely lacking the magic of the past. We are going to expose the illusion of the modern striker. Let us talk about big game clutch, the paradox of the modern striker. When your team is down 3-0 in the Champions League, what do? Erling Haaland accepted his fate. He walked off the pitch in the 83rd minute to be replaced by Omar Marmoush. Let that sink in. Substituted in the biggest game of the year without a fight. His body language was defeated. His shoulders were slumped. His eyes were empty. He looked like a man who just wanted to go home. For big game clutch, Haaland gets a pathetic 2 out of 10. Wayne Rooney gets a 10 out of 10. Rooney thrived in hostility. The more the crowd hated him, the more violent and lethal his football became. He would have never accepted a substitution like a beaten dog. If a manager tried to take him off in a game like that, Rooney would have started a war on the touchline. He would have screamed at his defenders, demanded the ball, and tried to break the net out of pure rage. He had blood in his eyes. He had the mentality that statistics cannot measure. Next on the legend meter is first touch under pressure. In the modern game, fans think scoring tap-ins against lower table teams makes you a technical god. But what happens when Antonio Rudiger's breathing down your neck? What happens when the physical pressure reaches boiling point? Haaland was bullied. His touch was heavy. The ball bounced off his boots like a brick wall. He could not hold up the play. He could not relieve the pressure on his team. Every time the ball came to him, it was instantly turned over. For first touch under pressure, the Norwegian gets a generous 4 out of 10. Wayne Rooney gets a 9 out of 10. The ball was glued to his feet. He could trap a meteor falling from the sky while two center-backs tried to snap his ankles. Rooney was the ultimate pivot. He absorbed the physical contact, shielded the ball with his low center of gravity, and bought his team time to breathe. He was a master at using the defender to spin and accelerate. Then we moved to football IQ in the chaos. This is the ultimate test of independence. Erling Haaland is entirely dependent on the system. If his wingers are neutralized, Haaland is neutralized. He does not drop deep to dictate the tempo. He does not create something out of absolutely nothing. Against Real Madrid, he touched the ball fewer times than his own goalkeeper. That is not just a bad game. That is a complete structural failure. He is a glitch in the matrix, waiting for a software update. His football IQ in the chaos is a miserable 3 out of 10. Wayne Rooney was the system. He gets a 10 out of 10. Rooney was a pure number 10, trapped in the body of a number 9. If the midfield was struggling, Rooney did not stand around waiting for a cross that was never going to come. He dropped into his own half, demanded the ball, and sprayed 60-yard diagonal passes with the precision of a sniper. He understood the rhythm of the game better than anyone else on the pitch. He knew exactly when to slow it down and when to speed it up. What about physical dominance and grit? The modern fan looks at Haaland and sees a giant, a physical specimen built in a laboratory. But physical dominance is not just about your height and your muscle mass. It is about how you use your body in a street fight. Haaland trotted around the pitch with zero intensity. He was completely apathetic, while his midfield was being eaten alive by the Spanish giants. He offered zero defensive work rate. For physical engine and aggression, Haaland scores a 4 out of 10. Wayne Rooney scores a 10 out of 10. Rooney played every single game like it was a war for his own survival. He would sprint 80 yards backwards to execute a sliding tackle in his own penalty area, steal the ball, get up, and sprint back to the attacking third to score. He gave you blood, sweat, and absolute terror. He was relentless and unforgiving. And finally, for this first half of the meter, let us look at pure pace and ball carrying in tight spaces. Erling Haaland has incredible straight-line speed. If you give him 40 yards of open grass, he is a freight train. But what happens when Real Madrid drops deep and denies that space? Haaland is incredibly stiff. He lacks the agility to weave through a low block. He cannot beat his man in a phone booth. When the space was closed down, he looked entirely average. He gets a 5 out of 10. Wayne Rooney had explosive acceleration combined with a low center of gravity. He could change direction in a split second. He could carry the ball through a forest of legs, bouncing off defenders like a bowling ball, keeping his balance, and firing a shot into the top corner. He gets an 8.5 out of 10 for his ability to break lines all by himself. He was a force of nature that did not need a perfect tactical setup to destroy you. Let us move to flair and magic. This is the absolute nightmare for the spreadsheet generation. You cannot measure magic. You either have it in your soul, or you are a machine executing code. Erling Haaland is a machine with a fatal error. When the ball is crossed perfectly into his path, he scores. When the ball bounces awkwardly in the box, or the play breaks down, he looks like a man trying to solve a complex calculus problem in a nightclub. There is no improvisation. There is no Sambanu street archie, no breathtaking moment of individual brilliance that makes 90,000 fans gasp in disbelief. He is functional. He is clinical. But he is entirely devoid of magic. For flair and magic, the cyborg gets a miserable 2 out of 10. Wayne Rooney gets a 9 out of 10. Rooney was pure British street magic. He did things that completely defied logic and tactical instruction. He would flick the ball over a towering defender with a casual touch, chest it down, and smash a volley off the crossbar just because he felt like it. He played with a deep anger that somehow fueled his creativity. He was a brute who painted absolute masterpieces on the pitch. He did not need a sterile, perfectly controlled environment to create art. He created art in the mud, in the pouring rain, and under the most intense pressure imaginable. Now we look at lethal finishing and technical range. The statistics boys will scream that Haaland breaks goal-scoring records every season. But context is everything in football. What happens when the perfect pass is cut off? What happens when you have to score from 25 yards out because the defense is sitting deep and the passing lanes are entirely closed? Haaland is a tap-in merchant. If the ball is not served on a silver platter inside the 6-yard box, his threat level drops to absolute zero. He cannot pull a rabbit out of a hat. He does not score overhead kicks from the edge of the box in a Champions League semi-final. He does not curl free kicks into the top corner when the game is locked in a bitter stalemate. His technical range is shockingly limited for a man the media calls the best player in the world. He needs a silver spoon feed. He gets a 6 out of 10. When Rooney gets a 10 out of 10. His arsenal was infinite and absolutely terrifying. He could score from the halfway line. He could shatter the crossbar from 30 yards out with pure, unadulterated anger. He could execute the most delicate chip over a rushing goalkeeper while running at full speed. Remember the bicycle kick against Manchester City. That is pure technical range forged in the fires of street football. If the tap-in was not available, Rooney simply invented a completely new way to score. He was a complete center forward who did not rely on perfect service to put his name on the scoreboard. He took matters into his own hands and forced the ball into the net through sheer will. Let us examine the weak foot. Predictability is the absolute death of a modern striker in Europe. When you play against an elite defense like Real Madrid, they study your every single move on tape. They force you onto your weak side. Erling Haaland is criminally left-footed. The Spanish defense knew exactly how to shepherd him away from danger all night long. They showed him his right foot and dared him to use it to beat them. He could not do it. His right foot is merely for standing and balancing. When forced to adapt to a new angle, he becomes a highly paid passenger watching the game pass him by. For weak foot, Haaland scores a generous 4 out of 10. Wayne Rooney gets an 8 out of 10. You could not force Rooney onto a weak side because he simply did not have one. He would blast a shot with his left foot with the exact same venom and accuracy as his right. He would deliver pinpoint crosses with his weak foot while sprinting down the wing at full speed. This made him an absolute nightmare to defend. You could not predict his next move because he had no physical limitations holding his imagination back. This leads us perfectly into unpredictability, the lifeblood of the beautiful game. Erling Haaland movements are entirely mapped out. The Real Madrid center-backs read him like a children's book. They knew exactly when he was going to make his run. They knew exactly where he wanted the ball, because he only does one thing. Neutralizing him is simply a matter of defensive discipline. He is a robotic striker operating inside a robotic system. When the system is broken, the robot is completely useless. For unpredictability, Haaland receives a catastrophic 2 out of 10. Wayne Rooney gets a 10 out of 10. He brought absolute chaos to the football pitch. The defender never knew if Rooney was going to drop deep to ping a 40-yard pass, drive straight at his chest like a battering ram, or shoot from impossible angles. He was a force of nature that refused to be categorized. He broke the tactical mold every single time he stepped onto the grass. He was the wild card that every single manager in Europe feared. And finally, the most important category of all, the aura. You cannot buy it. You cannot train it, and you certainly cannot find it on a spreadsheet. Aura is the psychological weight a player carries. It is the fear he instills in the opposition before the referee even blows the whistle. When Manchester City was getting humiliated at the Bernabeu, Erling Haaland's aura vanished into thin air. He looked like a frightened kid hiding behind his defenders. He shrank under the blinding lights. The Real Madrid players looked at him and felt absolutely nothing. No fear, no respect. Just a system player having a bad day at the office. For aura, Haaland scores a humiliating 1 out of 10. Wayne Rooney gets a 10 out of 10. Prime Wayne Rooney stepping onto the Bernabeu pitch would have made the entire stadium hold its breath. His sheer physical presence demanded immediate respect. He carried the heavy weight of Manchester United on his shoulders, and he loved every second of it. He would have fought every single player in a white shirt if he had to. He possessed the dark arts, the grit, and the pure footballing royalty that made him an immortal legend of the game. Stop comparing modern robots to historic kings. The football legend meter does not lie.